Hello, my wonderful, beautiful friends. Guys, welcome back to r/EntitledPeople, where people believe the world revolves around them and nobody else matters. And in today's episode, it's all about entitled siblings. So if you've got entitled siblings, this one's for you. We've got people demanding inheritances, houses, ruining weddings. Guys, it's wild in this one. I hope you enjoy the stories. Don't shake your heads too hard. And as always, you can send or link your post to this email right here. Let's dive in. So here's a little backstory. My dad was a very hardworking man, and when he and mom passed, they left us two kids, my brother and myself, a considerable sum of money, with the intention to give us a comfortable head start in life. Now, it wasn't a staggering amount by today's standards, but it was definitely enough for a starter home for each of us. At the time, I was newly married, and I felt the best way to handle this newfound inheritance was to invest in a modest home, free and clear, pay off all the debt we had, and buy a vehicle to replace my little crap box. There was even enough to put a down payment on a vehicle for my husband. Despite my parents being gone, I was in a good place, all things considered. I didn't care if I had 2 nickels to rub together. We were both working full-time, and we had a house that was fully paid for. My brother received the same amount, and he too decides to invest in a new home and a new vehicle, which was very smart use of his portion, or so I thought. But it gets worse. About 6 months later, I receive a disturbing phone call from my brother, saying he was completely broke and he needs money from me. I was incredulous. He then told me he was also looking for a new place to live, to which I asked what happened to his house. And that's when the bomb was dropped. He admitted he had given up his house to foreclosure. Now, instead of buying his place outright or even putting a sizable amount down on a modest home, he instead places a 10% down payment and he decides to mortgage the rest. Now, you'd think that doesn't sound bad, right? But wrong. This tactic will only work if you don't mind losing a crap ton of money to interest, and if you intend to, make your mortgage payments. The thing is, he couldn't even afford mortgage payments because the 10% down payment was a large chunk of inheritance he got, and he spent most of it on other stupid things. With that said, after being notified by the bank about his sad state of affairs, he was given this incredible gift. Because my brother was a new homeowner, the bank was willing to make a one-time concession. He could pay 2 months of outstanding mortgage payments up front, and the rest would be tacked on to the amortization period. And seriously, that never happens. It was a gift from some unseen entity that took pity on this piece of crap. And you know what my brother said? He said, nah, take the house. Take the house. So he was able to sell the house for a $3,000 profit, and then decides to rent some crappy apartment where he remains to this day. Now, I don't even know where his money went, and it's really none of my business, but I'd be lying if I said I wasn't curious. So you're probably asking where this entitlement comes in. So my brother calls me up one day, and he says I'm short rent. And I say, oh, this again? My brother then says, this is serious. My wife and I are going to be evicted if I can't come up with a rent by the end of the week. I can hear my sister-in-law screeching in the background saying, she owes us money, make her give us money. Now with that said, I should backtrack a bit. When the estate was settled, I petitioned for a small portion of my brother's share, about $10,000, to cover the following items among other things. Number 1. Cleaning out the family home, including performing repairs to prepare the house for sale. Number 2. Arranging for both funeral services since my brother wanted no part in that. Number 3. My paying for both grave markers out of pocket since my brother also refused to do that. And number 4. My paying for legal fees in relation to the execution of both wills and settling the estate. I should also note that my brother, in a moment of clarity, agreed to this arrangement without hesitation, even though I made it very clear that he was under no obligation. I thought that would be the end of it. But my sister-in-law would not have it. She accuses me of stealing from my brother's rightful share, and that I had such nerve to be so selfish to demand money from them, when it was totally undeserved. And this is coming from the same woman who paraded through my parents' home on the day of my mom's funeral, pointing out the stuff that she wanted. I did jokingly bet my husband that my brother would go through his inheritance within a year, while my hubby said 6 months. I still owe him a fancy steak dinner since I lost the bet. Anyways, back to the rent story. All I could do was tell my brother that I simply couldn't afford to pay his rent. He didn't end up getting evicted, so either he found another sucker or he had the money squirreled away and he was trying to find a way to get more money out of me. Sister-in-law's always making sniping comments now and then about how well off we are at their expense, as she believes it's my fault they're completely broke. And the most important thing is, they never did get kicked out, but I'm still dumbfounded and appalled at how the whole situation played out. I honestly wish I could say this situation was fabricated, but sadly, it's not. And even more sadly, is there's more in this tiny library that I call a brain because my brother is so entitled it hurts. Oh man, I totally believe it, and honestly, what really hurts is when I read stories of people just blowing through their inheritance in the blink of an eye and then demanding more money from their siblings. Like OP did it the right way. She treated that inheritance as a blessing, as a way to get ahead in life and to make things easier for her family. That's what her parents would have probably wanted to happen. Meanwhile, her brother, my goodness, just blows a chunk of it on a frickin' down payment, on a mansion probably. And the guy ends back up at square one. Unfrickin' believable. And if you think that was worth a head shake, listen to this next post. So for as long as I can remember, my youngest sister has worked several jobs to pay her bills. As an adult, I got married, and our combined income was pretty good, so we decided that we would help take some financial stress off her. So we started paying her phone bill and utilities and bringing bags of groceries by once a week or so. Then, one day her car dies and we decide to surprise her with a new one. Now, the car didn't have all the bells and whistles, but it was still a nice car. When we gave it to her, she seemed very appreciative and happy. We told her that we would pay the monthly payment, the registration, and insurance. The rest was up to her. She still worked full-time, but I had no idea where her money went. The plan was for her to take all those bills on again one day. We just never set a time for it to happen. So fast forward 2 years later, and out of the blue, my wife cheats on me and she takes off, leaving me with a ton of debt, a house I couldn't afford on my own, and a broken heart. So I call up my sister and I sobbed over the phone to her, saying how terrible I felt. She was sympathetic until I told her I wouldn't be able to pay her bills anymore. In fact, she became totally silent when I told her that. I asked, "Are you there?" She replies, "Did you just say that I have to start paying my bills again, like my car payment and insurance?" I say to her, "Yes, I can't afford it anymore with just my salary. Plus, I'm gonna lose my house." That's when she tells me I can't afford to start paying these bills. I didn't even want this car. And now you're telling me I have no choice but to pay for this ugly car that I didn't want. Plus all the other things like insurance. You're the one who gave me those bills, so why should I pay them? Now I'm completely speechless at her response. And that's when she shrieks, "How could you do this to me? You're gonna ruin my life. You can't stop paying for my stuff." And that's the one sentence from her that I'll never forget or forgive her for. My sadness just turns to anger in a split second, and I say, "How could I do this to you? My wife left me. I'm alone and I feel like absolute crap. I'm gonna lose my house and I barely make enough for my own bills, and you're going on about you? I've been paying your bills for years." Like, did you never once think that one day that they would be your bills again? Did you ever plan to pay things yourself again, or were you just assuming I'd keep paying everything until you die? I'm here heartbroken, lost, and depressed, and the only thing you can think about is yourself. I then hung up on her and I cried even more. Maybe 15 minutes later, my phone rings and it's my sister. She says, "Have you calmed down yet? Can we talk?" Listen, you bought me that car and it's only fair you keep paying for it. I didn't ask for it. You can't just totally stop helping me. How much can you afford to give me per month? I tell her I ran the numbers. I literally do not have a penny to give you anymore. I've been doing this for years and this is the only time I need my family for support, and clearly I'm not getting it. She tried to defend herself and tell me that I can probably still afford to pay less per month. I just hung up the phone, and I put my phone on silent and I sat in the dark, thinking how I had nobody to lean on, as my mom's the only other person I have, and she's been no contact for a long time. I learned the hard way who my real friends and family were during that time. Man, I feel so bad for OP in this situation. Like, being in a rough spot, and on top of that, finding out that his sister was basically an entitled, spoiled leech must have been a huge punch to the gut. Like, I can't even begin to imagine the pain OP must have felt. Like, for years, he cared for his sister, helped her out in life, made sure she had food on the table, her bills are paid, and then one day, when he needs her the most, he finds out she only gives a damn about herself. That is so freaking sad. I'm aware of several similar stories involving entitled family members wanting houses they have no claim to, but I guess this stuff really happens, and it's no picnic when it does. I suddenly became a homeowner some time ago because a friend of mine's grandfather was moving to Florida, and his house was ripe for picking. I knew the old man well, and he passed a few months later from a sudden stroke. Anyways, he offered the house and property to me for $200,000. I practically ran to the bank to apply for the loan. The house is a manufactured home from the 80s, but it was remodeled by the former owner and has a separate garage building. The home and property could have gone for more, but he offered the house to me because he knew I'd take care of it. I had $30,000 saved, and it made a good down payment. I was just happy to leave my apartment. As for my brother, well, he went bonkers when he found out I bought a house. My brother has this repeated history of copycatting me for the past decade. But there was no way in hell he could copycat buying a house with his terrible credit and inconsistent income. So my brother does what he does best. He gets into an argument with me how I was trying to make him look bad by doing something he couldn't. To which I responded, I just want a damn house, and the price was too good to refuse. He then told me that I should have turned it down. He then starts listing horrible reasons, like how he wanted it, how I don't deserve a house before him, how the house is ugly. Like, the guy had no good reason. I could practically see his screws getting looser with every dumb excuse he made as to why I shouldn't have done it. But I pointed out that all those excuses were just because I did something he currently can't. And when I bought the house, it had nothing to do with him. I just wanted to be a homeowner for security and extra space. I finally don't have to store my camper at my parents' house anymore. And I have a garage that I can store stuff and tinker in. Now, a thing about my brother is that he has to have and do everything I did, and a lot of the times he would try to one-up me. Like, if I bought a camping cot, he bought a camping cot, but better. If I went to the gym, he went to the gym, but a better gym. If I bought good booze, he would buy good booze. And most of the time, he would steal it from me. If I bought a new TV, his was newer and better. I bought a truck, his truck was better. You get the idea. Well, of course, when I bought the house, well, he couldn't. So what does he do? He gets jealous. After a few weeks of openly fuming about me being a homeowner, my brother suddenly acts like he has another brilliant idea. He wants to move in with me for free, as that's the least I could do for him. Now, I laughed at him when he said that. He then ends up demanding I rent one of my rooms to him, and only for $200 a month, utilities included, because he shouldn't have to pay any more than that since we're family. And he flipped his lid when I said F no. And then he got our parents involved, and this time they actually sided with him at first. It was mainly my mother. She and my brother showed up, demanding that I let my brother move in. And my brother had this grin on his face that I could tell he was thinking he was getting his way, thanks to Mommy Dearest. I, of course, stood my ground and I said F no to their faces. And my mom just cried that I was using foul language to her and I was being an a-hole when I had the space now. I then called my dad, and he told my mom that he had warned her that I wouldn't do it and to leave me the hell alone. My mom just whined how my brother was living out of a camper next to a shabby house he was renting space from, and that I could save him from that. I told her that wasn't my problem to fix, and my brother has proven countless times that he can't be trusted. My brother was fuming to the point of being red with veins popping out. My mom then tried one more time to convince me with tears in her eyes, and that just made me angrier. That caused me to go on a rant that was something like this. I basically said, so my brother can't buy a house, so he wants to invade mine? And now you two are crying because I refuse to ever live with my brother again? I would sooner live in the woods without electricity than with him. He's irritating as all hell, and if I had him as a roommate, I knew he'd steal my booze, take my stuff, and invade my privacy non-stop. That's not effing happening. I then told my mom, no matter how many tiers you try using on me, it won't work. My mom then breaks down, and she finally conceded that she would never convince me after that rant. She had to take my brother by the hand and leave with him because he refused to go, and he kept begging her to turn back and make me let him move in. I just yelled to him, thanks for the laugh, and that this was like the time he tried to get our mom to make me trade vehicles with him because he felt ashamed to be driving a minivan. He then yanked away from my mom and told me to go F myself and the horse I rode in on. I just laughed, and I pointed out I didn't ride in on anything because I was already home. That caused him to flip his lid again, and he looked like his head was gonna explode. My mom got in front of him and told him to just go. He then drove off in his rattle-can Silverado without her. He had driven her there, and I had to take her home. While taking her home, I made things very clear with my mom over why I could never trust my brother again, and how his life was not my burden to bear. I then told her how little my brother was offering for rent anyways, which he had conveniently not told her. I later rented that same room to one of my best friends for $600 a month, and he pays for utilities. The other 2 rooms are my bedroom and my office. There's an extra room in the separate garage too. So you know what my mother did? My mother tried to make me let my brother live in the garage instead, to just let him move in as there's enough room for a bedroom. Again, I said F no. That has since been turned into another friend's rented room with a bit of a plywood remodel. And yeah, I kind of rented the spare bedroom and garage room to friends out of spite. I wasn't letting my brother live with me in any capacity. My brother later ends up with a complete meltdown in front of our parents, how he's the older brother, so he should be the one who owns a house first, how he's supposed to be successful, and how I'm supposed to be a big loser in his shadow. Our dad just pokes him with his cane and told him that's not how life works, and they had this big argument. They then told him to get out and to not come back until he's cooled off, and when he learned that he's just being a pointlessly jealous a-hole. But of course, that didn't work. So yeah, the post ends right there, guys, and I'm glad OP put his foot down and did not let his brother move in. And seriously, I've read a lot of stories about siblings demanding houses before, and it never ceases to amaze me how some people have that mentality where they think that just because they're older, they should have certain things, and no younger sibling is ever allowed to outdo them. Like, ridiculous, right? Good on OP for getting a house and living their own life. But guys, with that said though, imagine being a full-grown adult and crying to mom like that. Mom, make him give me his house. I'm older. He's not allowed to have a house before me. I'm a 35-year-old male, and I have a younger brother who I'll call Todd. Now, Todd had a complicated birth, and he had to stay a month in the ICU. Because of that, my parents have always doted on him and almost denied him nothing, even if it was to the detriment of my sister Abby and I. And the thing about my brother is he drinks in on the attention, and he has on more than one occasion made himself the center of attention at either my sister, or my cousin's special event. Because of this, Abby and I have a strained relationship with Todd and our parents. With that said, unfortunately, Todd met and fell in love with a girl named Lucy, who announced her own pregnancy at the baby shower that my mom held for my sister Abby. When I proposed to my wife Michelle, I just wanted to elope, but she wanted her family to be there, so we decided on a big wedding, and I invited my family out of obligation. While out, my best man Jim notices a receipt from a jewelry store that slipped out of Todd's jacket pocket. Jim confronted Todd about this, which led to an argument. Jim told me everything, and I told Todd that he was no longer going to be a groomsman because I knew he was going to propose at my wedding. Todd then cried to our parents, which led to a blowout. And yes, a 29-year-old man cried because he didn't get his way. That's my brother. In my parents' eyes, since Todd never admitted that he was going to propose to Lucy at my wedding, I was unfairly judging him. I refused, and I brought up Todd's past behavior, how he loves stealing people's spotlight. My parents couldn't refute this, and they got Todd to agree to not try anything at my wedding. This wasn't enough to convince me, but I warned him if he tried anything, I would make him regret it. So with that, fast forward to the wedding, and surprise, surprise, Todd walks over to Lucy and he proposed to her during Michelle's father-daughter dance, and he did it in a way that everyone would notice, totally taking attention away from the father-daughter dance completely. Now, I was so mad that I decided to get back at him right then and there. Jim and I asked around, and we found a woman to pretend to be Todd's side piece, who cornered Todd and Lucy and claimed she was pregnant with his baby and that she didn't know he was seeing anyone else. Todd, of course, denied that, and he said to Lucy that he'd never even met this woman. But it was way too late. Lucy threw the ring back at Todd and left in tears. When Todd saw the smile on my face, he knew it was me, and I didn't respond to a single call or text from him or my parents until after the honeymoon. Lucy's thrown Todd's stuff out and has denied access to their kid, and Todd's furious and he's demanding I clear his name. I just sent him a text saying I had no idea what he was talking about, as well as a screenshot of a bill for the wedding, and gave a vague message demanding reimbursement for half the wedding cost. My wife knew the whole time what I was planning, and she gave me the green light after Todd ruined her moment with her dad, so I felt pretty good. But my sister Abby thinks I went too far, so am I the a-hole in this situation? Honestly, I think what Opie did to his brother was super fair, even though it was an a-hole move, right? Like, his brother was the one who decided to pull off this a-hole move first, after making a promise to not propose at Opie's wedding. So it was only fair that Opie get to retaliate. Like, stealing the attention away from a father-daughter dance at a wedding to propose is absolutely one of the most entitled things a person can do. And honestly, I don't know how Opie's wife kept her cool, and she stopped herself from murdering the guy. It just totally sucks, because you know for a fact when people who attended the wedding think back to Opie's wedding day, it's not gonna be, oh, the bride and groom looked so happy, her dress was gorgeous, blah blah blah. No, it's gonna be, holy crap, you remember when Todd proposed during the father-daughter dance? How crazy was that? But guys, let me know what you think. Was it fair? Was it not fair? Are you on Team Todd or Team OP in this one? It just kinda sucks how siblings can be that savage towards one another. And that, my friends, brings us to another end of our /Entitled People. Guys, I hope you enjoyed today's stories. If you did, hit that thumbs up. And if you're not subscribed, consider subscribing so you don't miss these crazy, crazy stories. And if you missed yesterday's episode on the channel, it's in our /Malicious Compliance episode, where smug bosses are getting owned left and right. Guys, go check it out if you haven't. And myself and Stevie Boy will see you guys in the next one. We love you.